Greetings, my fellow free-blooded cyber thinkers. This is LO3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Friday, September 8th, 2017. Yes, it's early morning Friday. I am in a warehouse district of Sunrise, Florida. And the little evacuation out where I'm at in Fort Lauderdale. So just keeping tabs, got some sleep, and we'll just check the latest coordinates here for Hurricane Irma. This is from the National Hurricane Center itself. One thing I can't stand is anxiety and fear and sensationalism with some of the lamestream news, including some of the weather stations on cable. I don't have to say any names, you can figure it out. It's from the 5 a.m. Report. It's, of course, Irma's moving through the southeastern Bahamas as extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane. So it's a high 4. Still very dangerous. And the coordinates here right now, location 21.7 north. And 73.8 west, moving west-northwest at 16 miles an hour. Minimal pressure is 925 millibars. Maximum sustained winds at 155 miles an hour. And if I'm correct, according to the public advisory on here, it says right down here, Irma moving through the southeastern Bahamas, extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane. It's from the summary from the 5 a.m. information, and it's about 55 miles or 90 kilometers northwest of Great Agnogra Island, about 495 miles or 795 kilometers of Miami, Florida. Maximum sustained winds 155 miles an hour or 250 kilometers an hour. Present movement west-northwest or 285 degrees at 60 miles an hour or 26 kilometers an hour. Minimum central pressure 925 millibars or 27.32 inches. Excuse me. Here, of course, the warnings are in the Washington warnings. Storm surge warnings in effect from Jupiter Inlet southward to the Florida Peninsula, the Bonita Beach, which goes to the Florida Keys. And storm surge watch on the opposite end. And of course, talk about the warnings in effect. Even Lake Okeechobee, alright, because it's talking possibly maybe going right down the middle, but we don't know for sure. If that's the case, the people on Lake Okeechobee need, if you live around that lake, get out, because there was a time that the center of the storm went through Lake Okeechobee and had to create a big storm surge, and actually people were killed. It happened in 1928. The 1928 Lake Okeechobee hurricane, it was called. And many lives were lost during that time. That's why they do have the high wall for the water, storm surge walls they call it. And of course, Haiti, the northern border with the Dominican Republic, to Laval, St. Nicholas. Of course, provinces in Cuba, Camagüey, Quetzal, La Vela, Sacti, Spurious, and Villa Clara, central Bahamas and northwestern Bahamas, all in the warning effects. And of course, storm surge. We go down here. There's one thing too we'll find out on the discussion. Okay, latitude, longitude, systematic sustained winds, all that. And it looks like the hurricane force winds has shrunk a little bit, because it was 75 miles outwards, or 110 kilometers from the center. It was 75. Now it's 70, so it has shortened a little bit, but still, you still gotta pay attention. And plus, the tropical storm force winds extended outwards 185 miles an hour, or 295 kilometers. Even though, like I say, it has hurricane force winds has shrunk a little bit, it's still a dangerous cyclone. It could be tornadic conditions can occur. We'll expect that to occur as well. And so that's why you gotta always be ready and be safe. And I was listening to the gentleman from Hurricane Tracker. He said it was like a lot of people have a lot more ease in those areas, like near northern Florida, which is good. Happy to hear about that. Of course, he was going to have your folks run amok as well, and that is very unhealthy. What you do is you bring negative energy to the rest of your neighbors or your environment. And don't get me wrong, there's no joke about what Irma can do. Expect some possible huge damage, Lord forbid. So just also make sure everyone's got to be safe and be alive. Like I said, if you folks, if social media is still up, please. And many of you may have my number. We'll figure out. We'll figure out how to get contacts. And because one thing for sure is just I want to see everyone I care about alive too. So even my enemies, just to give you a heads up. No animosity on them, but I want to see their families, them and their families be safe as well. So this is the whole thing is we're gonna have that spiritual inspiration. And you know what I would recommend too? There's some pretty cool music on healing and anxiety. This is one here, like powerful healing frequency of Earth's magnetic field, boosts positive energy. Yeah, this is from a channel called Power Thoughts Meditation Club. And they got one, 215, 28 megahertz and all that too. It's good to have. It keeps your mind focused and not like run amok. This is one here from Zen Life Relax on YouTube. And you can folks, you can just look this up yourselves. 528 hertz, release inner conflict, struggle, anti-anxiety cleanse. And I listened to it, and I have to admit it was inspiring. To just like calms you down, keeps you focused, not having any anxiety attacks, etc. Just gotta have that balance in life, especially during these times. And of course, a big terrible earthquake happened in Chiapas, Mexico. 8.1 in the Richter scale. So a lot of stuff is happening around the world, my friends. Many of them may call it Bible prophecies. Regardless of what your creed is, it is an interesting time to be alive. All right, well, I'm not going to talk about anything disastrous here, but there's a few things I'm going to talk about, mainly from personalliberty.com. And yeah, it's good stuff to you people who don't or not really crazy about government dependency and all that. But this one here is a good little story. It came from Special to Liberty. They don't really have a person's name on here, but it says here it originally appeared on the Foundation for Economic Education on September 6th. Oh, okay. It says here, how price gouging helped my family during the storm. I was grateful for Walmart because by raising prices for milk, it throttled the greedy customers who, without consideration for others, snatched up 2 and 3 gallons. 2 years ago, around North Carolina was expecting a severe ice storm and some minor accumulation of snow. For those living in the Northeast, that is just a typical Tuesday, but those of us living in North Carolina is a reason to go into full panic. The price of milk. So I decided to leave work a few hours early in order to beat the storm. Before leaving, however, my wife texted me and asked if I could stop on my way home and pick up some milk. I stopped at the first 3 grocery stores along the way, only to find all 3 completely sold out of milk. Despite the impending panic, neither store increased its prices for things like milk and bread. Walmart just down the street from the 3rd grocery store I visited was my last hope. I figured that if Walmart was sold out of milk, I will go home empty-handed and the family would have to make it do with what we had left in the refrigerator. Well, at least until the ice and snow melted, which fortunately in North Carolina would be in about 2 days. I walked into a Walmart and made a beeline for the dairy case, only to find it empty. Walmart too had sold out of milk. It too didn't increase the price of its milk, selling it for its normal price of $2.79 per gallon. But wait, next to this empty dairy case, I saw another dairy case with sign taped to the door. Behind the door with the sign taped to it were dozens of gallons of milk. What did the sign say? The price of Mola milk is temporarily $6.50 a gallon. That was more than double what Walmart normally charged. I happily grabbed a gallon from the case and paid for it and made my way home. The morality of price gouging for people. The higher price Walmart charged for this milk was an obvious affront to decency, a blatant example of a greedy corporation ongoing its customers in a time of crisis and need. I see it differently. I was grateful for Walmart because by raising its price for the Mola brand milk, it thought the greedy customers who, without consideration for others, snatched up 2 and 3 gallons. That's what happens with the Walmart brand milk and the milk sold in the other 3 stores I visited. By raising its price for Mola brand milk, Walmart gave people proper incentive to ration their consumption of it. They left plenty of Mola brand milk for people like me who make it to the store earlier. They didn't do so out of concern for my welfare, but out of concern for their own welfare. As an economist, I teach students about the benefit of what is derisively referred to as price gouging, and why allowing prices to increase before and after a natural or man-made disaster is beneficial to those most in need. I am often asked something to the effect of how would you feel if it happened to you? Well, it has happened to me, and this is just one example of that. Sadly, most of the time I experience the opposite, wasting time waiting in line to get some good, or by letting at all because the price wasn't permitted to rise. Consider the water shortage currently plaguing residents of Texas, an overtly hostile backlash against those who raise the price of things like bottled water. Does this action hurt Texans, dumping on people who literally and figuratively are struggling to get their heads above water, or do these higher prices benefit them, especially those most in need, by relieving them of having to deal with greedy hoarders and thus lessening the harsh realities of an immediate shortage of fresh water at their disposal? Not only the higher price of water deter greedy people from indiscriminately hoarding what limited supply of water is currently available in that immediate era, it creates an incentive for people in places like Austin, Dallas, Norman, Oklahoma, and Little Rock, Arkansas, to shift supplies of water from those areas where it is plentiful to the Gulf Coast areas of Texas where it desperately needed. Without the reward from charging higher prices, most won't do it. For those who argue that people in areas not affected by the flooding should, out of kindness, voluntarily transport supplies like water to devastated areas for free, or for at most the price they paid for it. Why you haven't done so? Why you waiting for others to act on what you apparently regard as morally superior behavior? Oh, and for the record, when I scanned the gallon milk at Walmart, the price I was charged was $3.18, the normal price. Did Walmart simply forget to change the price in its computer system? Or was the manager aware that a simple sign stating the price has doubled was sufficient to deter hoarding by customers? It is by Mark Steckbeck. And I can respect that dearly, to be very certain, for all sincerity, because it is good. Some people may not like it, like it was one person here. Why put a limit on things? That's reasonable. No, some just plain price gouging. Sad that this happens when people are already down on their luck, God bless America and those in Ima's path. So you have to look at all sides. And so one person sounds like supply and demand to me. I see that as well. Sometimes, but one thing I'm laughing because even Pam Bondi, Attorney General from Florida, is going to go attack on people on price gouging. If the demand is there, if the supply is there, demand for it, that person can make that price. But of course, everyone wants things cheap, which has its flaws and fallacies as well. You have to, that's why, folks, let's prep yourselves at the best of your ability and a human element. Even myself, I have my pitfalls as well as a human being. But you have to have that mindset, even around this time of potential disasters. Even look what happened in Texas and Louisiana on the coastline with Harvey. Very horrific. And I remember Andrew 25 years ago, where I was living at, minor damage as far as I'm concerned. Minor. But further south, totally different ball game. So, a lot of things I don't need. Even if you have family, you have to. I'm not saying being a parent is easy. That would be absurd. But you have to teach the kids sometimes those areas as well. So, hey, it's how you see it. Some people may complain, others say, hey, that's how it goes. Remember, everyone is different. But I don't even shop at Walmart, so something to really look at, my friends. All right, this one here from the same site. Public school teaches students a lesson in guilty until proven innocent. How incriminating. By Sam Raleigh. Around here, the nation's public education system is where the majority of young Americans are first indoctrinated to the idea that the state is always right. Oh yeah, I know about that, right? A recent story out of New Jersey involving 75 students who were required to provide blood and urine samples after administrators spotted a beer can at a football game is proof positive that the American youth are being conditioned to exist in a tyrannical society. According to local news reports, administrators at Randolph Township High School forced 75 students to report to local medical facilities for blood and urine samples because they were sitting in a section of bleachers near where school officials spotted a beer can during a September 1st football game. The local Daily Record reported scores of Randolph students were pulled from the bleachers of a Randolph High School football game Friday night and compelled to undergo alcohol screening after a beer can either fell or was thrown in the front of a personnel monitoring the student, according to a statement from District Superintendent Jennifer A. Fano. What an asswipe, excuse my language. The students were sequestered in classrooms before the kickoff of the season opening home victory over Livingston, creating what some parents describe as a chaotic scene. Parents were contacted to pick up the children and have them screened. District policy and regulation states that failure to comply with screening is deemed a positive test result and will result in suspension from school, Fano explained. Judge, jury, executioner. Yes, mistress, may I have another? Here's how Randolph High School student and class of 2018 president Nate Pangaro described the ordeal in a public Facebook post. Before the game could begin, an administrator went to the front and told everyone to be quiet. He announced that he found an open beer can on the ground that rolled to him. I gotta stop there for a moment. It reminds me of the time it was one assistant principal at my old junior high school. And he was a penny picker. One time I actually rolled a penny by him. And it rolled right to his feet. It was at the school cafeteria. He just looked at both sides, got the penny, put it right in his shirt pocket. Oh, everyone laughed. And another time, he had a little dispute with a couple of students. I flinged a penny, it bounced, and it went right into his afro. That was in 1982. Wow, man, I still remember that. All right, I'm just gonna say it here, and that someone should confess to whose it was before anyone for a breathalyzer test. No one confessed, so people went into the school each at a time to be tested. In a later statement, the parents, many of whom were understandably upset, found no justify the school's actions, say upon further investigation, several other containers of alcohol were identified. There were also other indicia that the students in this section had consumed alcohol. As educators we are charged with enforcing policy. The law requires that we send students out to be tested when it appears that may be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. So Fanos is saying her administrators had reason to believe that 75 students were under the influence of alcohol. Some folks in the local community remain unconvinced and are calling BS. I bet you her favorite movie is Rock and Roll High School with that Principal Tovar. Remember that movie? Christopher C. Treston, a local school board candidate, told the Daily Record that any sensible observer ought to have been able to see the problem before see such a large number of students to take the test. Let it be very clear. Teenage drinking is a serious problem, and it did in fact occur at our school on Friday night, he said. Our process of preventing backpacks, bottles, and cans from entering the stadium broke down. In addition, some number of students arrived intoxicated. We owe it to the community to identify such students and to protect them and the community. But we also need to do it in a way that protects the rights and dignity of the student body. When accused but innocent outnumbered the guilty 16-1, we probably did it wrong. Yeah. Unfortunately, heads of the U.S. national security apparatus and major law enforcement agencies will probably disagree. Take a look at the ever-expanding guilt over innocence initiatives, forced sobriety checkpoints, civil forfeiture policies, and the entire surveillance gathering system. Americans are conditioned to embrace every day in the name of safety. Nothing new at all. You all want to have that mindset that you're guilty to proven innocent, and still people buy it today. Well, someone probably did that to me. I'd probably give a penile microphone in their mouth. And don't worry, it's not sexual harassment either. Everyone's on their high horse trying to be so powerful. Well, one thing for sure, my friends, is always blows back in their faces. Yes, it is a problem. People consuming alcoholic beverages, teenagers, even at a football game, at parties and all that, have my mistakes as well. But you can't play innocent to proven, guilty to proven innocent. It doesn't work. It's a sham. It's Pavlov's dog training. I remember reading a book about that by the late Aaron Zellman. About the people versus the state. And they try to have this mindset in school, doing this for your own good. Whoever says that to you, my friends, overall, they're just a bunch of bald-faced liars. Like Miss Fayon here, Fana, is it Fana? Thinks the opposite. Well, she's in the wet dream, as far as I'm concerned. I'm just wondering who wears the pants of her household on a personal level. But like I said, my friends, don't get incriminated. Don't incriminate yourselves. You teach the students that. You teach young people. They got rights too. They're not property of the state. They want you to believe that. never get entrapped like what happened here in the Randolph Township High School. In New Jersey, the Garden State. Yeah, I have other things about what I thought about New Jersey politically. Alright. Well, got one more here. Like I said, off of the Personal Liberty site. This is a history lesson by Bob Livingston. Carter signs the Panama Canal. It happened on September 7th, by the way. On September 7th, 1977. Excuse me here. A dry throat. On September 1977, President Jimmy Carter and Panamanian dictator Omar Torrijos met in Washington, D.C. They signed a treaty that would authorize the immediate termination of the 10-mile wide canal zone and cede control of the canal over to Panama at the end of the 20th century. Carter's move to give up the canal caused a lot of consternation at a particular time among conservatives. Ronald Reagan, while seeking Republican presidential nomination in 1976, made the canal a key issue in his campaign against Gerald Ford, claiming, "We dug it, we owe it." But that's a very simplistic view of the canal's history. A need to rapidly get settlers and workers to the U.S. West Coast provided the initial impediment for a desire to build canal to facilitate travel. In 1855, the U.S. built a railroad across the Isthmus of Panama, at which time was part of Colombia, in order to move people more quickly, but talk of a canal continued. In 1879, Colombia awarded the rights to build a canal to the French entrepreneur Fernand de Lesseps, who had completed the Suez Canal 10 years before. After a couple of people of surveying and others' preliminary work of the canal building began under the leadership of de Lesseps and his son. But technical difficulties stemming from work in the wet tropics immediately reared their head. The excavation project was marred by landslides and cave-ins. The workers suffered a high death rate from tropical diseases. In a few short years, Lesseps filed for bankruptcy, and his Panama Canal Company was liquidated by the French courts. After the U.S. expanded its empire into the Pacific with the wartime acquisition of the Philippines and Guam, there was an increased need for a canal that would expedite the movement of American warships. So the U.S. Congress authorized the purchase of the Panama Canal's company's assets for $40 million in 1902, pending a treaty with Colombia. In 1903, the Hay-Herran Treaty was signed with Colombia that granted the United States to use of the territory in exchange for financial compensation. The treaty was ratified by the U.S. Senate, but the Colombian Senate, fearing the loss of sovereignty, refused to sign unless the U.S. agreed to pay the country $10 million. President Theodore Roosevelt declared that bridge a bridge too far and called it a holdup. Why would the U.S. balk at paying an additional $10 million to Colombia for the rights to build a canal, when in fact the $10 million was to be taken out of the $40 million for the Panama Canal's company assets? Because, as Murray Rothbard explained, the French company was no longer French. It had secretly been bought out by a syndicate of Wall Street bankers headed by J.P. Morgan and Company. Hey, J.P. Morgan, a la the Federal Reserve Act. Working for the syndicate was Wall Street lawyer William Nelson Cromwell, who was lobbying for the project and writing President Theodore Roosevelt's dispatches and order on the transaction from the White House. Also part of the syndicate was Roosevelt's brother-in-law, Douglas E. Robinson. So Roosevelt instigated a rebellion in Panama by encouraging the American-paid railroad companies to revolt and declare the Panama section of the country independent, to free it from Colombia and assist the effort by removing its trains from the region. stranding Colombian troops sent to quash it. The U.S. also dispatched the warship Nashville to prevent other troops from marching on the Panamanians. The instance of the U.S. used its military and commercial assets to wrest control of territory from Colombia, a country that posed it no threat, in order to facilitate the expansion of its empire. In doing so, it enriched the Morgan Syndicate and installed a puppet government in a Latin American country it created. By the 1970s, Panama was deep in debt to the U.S. when General Torres seized power in the coup in 1968. The country's national debt was $167 million. By the late 1970s, its estimated debt was more than $3.5 billion, of which $1.7 billion was owned to U.S. banks, as Rothbard writes. Leading the parade of American banks involved in Panama are the First National City Bank and the Chase Manhattan Bank, the flagship bank to the far-flung Rockefeller financial interest. Both these banks served as a fiscal agent for the government of Panama. In one advertisement for a $115 million loan to Panama, for example, the First National City Bank is listed as the agent for the loan. Other participating banks included the Bank of America, Bankers Trust, Chase Manhattan, First National Bank of Boston, First National Bank of Chicago, the Republic National Bank of Dallas, and the Marine Midland Bank. Wow. We might ask, why did the New York banks pour all these loans to Torrijos Panama? It seems clear that the money was a quid pro quo for Torrijos' decision, on the advice of leading New York banks, to reorganize Panama's banking laws in July 1970. This reorganization provided a favorable haven free of taxes and onerous regulations for foreign banks in Panama, much as Panama has long provided a flag of convenience for world shipping. Since the 1970 deal legal change, total banking assets in Panama have expanded enormously, from a few banks with a few $1 million to 73 banks with total assets of $8.6 billion conducting transactions throughout the world. Prominent among the U.S. banks expanding rapidly in Panama since the 1970 legislation are the First National City Bank and the Bank of America, Chase Manhattan, and Marine Midland Bank. It was a deal that benefited the banks, U.S. banks, and Torrijos regime, which would, thereby expand its health as well as political power in Panama. But now the taxpayer is being subtly asked to pick up the tab. If a handful of large banks will be major beneficiaries of the Panama Canal Treaty, have they also had any role in lobbying for or negotiating the treaty itself, or will their gains be merely a lucky windfall from decisions made by the U.S. government for different reasons? Let us see. What we see is the heavy influence of the Council of Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission on Carter's staff as being major beneficiaries of the Panama Canal Treaty. Carter's Panama Canal Treaty was in effect a bailout of the big banks, and the American people, as usual, were left holding the empty bag. But the banksters made out like bandits on both ends of the canal building scheme. The canal was turned over to Panama on December 31st, 1999, but the U.S. claimed it still had the right to take over the canal in the event shipping is threatened. Well, you could say the Panama was victims of Hamiltonianism. Interesting. Kill butter, who benefits, right? Absolutely. Some of these people may be controlling the Panama Canal, but you know what? Banksters will always have their hands on something, including that as well. Interesting history lesson, we would say, correct? Imperialism. Ha ha! Oh, hopefully folks learned that much as I did. Unbelievable. Well, one moment here. It's that time in the morning. If I go back get some sleep again, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting you may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondences with decorum. Alright. So, you can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Breaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life, Minds.com, FutureNet.club, or patreon.com/LokiLook3 if you want to be my supporter, financial supporter, donate and all that. That'd be pretty cool. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com, or for you cryptid types, LokiLuck03@protonmail.com. Alright, my friends, that will be all for now. I'll try to do a couple more shows and see if I can do it if the cyclone or Hurricane Irma. Try to do a live one if possible. Just going to make a decision. Alright, so once again, thank you for your time. But always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love. May your guardian spirits be with you.